Yo, 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 what is going on? What is going on, faithful? This is your boy Ron, joined by my boy Mike and my guy Mav. We just go ahead and get right to it. This is at Niners Lounge, excuse me. Today we're going to go ahead and do something a little different. We're going to react to the Browns game, talk a little bit about the CMC and Debo, and we're going to get some predictions for the Vikings games. What's up, fellas? How's your night going?
What's up? It's been a long week. I hate these Monday night games. We got to wait an extra day.
Especially after a loss, for sure.
Especially after that, yeah.
Yep. So let's talk about the Browns game since we didn't get a chance to meet last week for whatever reason. But I think there's still a lot to talk about that's going to trickle into this week. Where do you guys want to start?
I think one word sums it up is disappointed. I think we just kind of went in there and uh, I think the Niners were kind of getting too big of heads, and I think it's a good thing. I think we needed to get punched in the mouth. I think it was a very humbling game for this team. I think they needed it, and I'm kind of glad it happened sooner than rather than later. So I think it's going to be huge motivation for them moving forward to not take teams for granted and just kind of go out there and give it your all. So it sucked. It was a long week, but I think we're going to be a better team for it in the long run.
Yeah, let's break it down from the beginning of the game. Obviously through halftime and then to the end of the game because I think there's a lot to talk about. What do you guys think about the scuffle at the beginning of the game? You guys have any thoughts on that?
I think that already kind of started off on a bad foot. I think it's a bad look. These teams need to hold their shit together. We've been seeing it for a couple weeks now. That teams keep getting into these like pre scuffles, and it's embarrassing. It's a bad look, and I don't like when any team gets involved with one.
Matt, what do you think?
I'm not even gonna sit here and lie to you, man. I believe I missed that little scuffle. I was back and forth um between the game and house duties and stuff, so I was kind of trying to pay as much attention as I possibly could to it. But I missed that scuffle. So what happened? Actually,
So it looked like it was Debo and Ayuk were jawing with the Browns secondary as they were waiting for the big guys, the O line to come in, and they were pushing, shoving. Debo was in the mix, and then Big Trent came out and just basically bulldozed everybody like a bowling ball. And of course, you're not going to mess with Trent. As soon as Trent came out, that was it. That was the end of it. The Browns pretty much just stopped, and then they went their own ways, started warming up, and the game started. Here's my 2 cents about it. I didn't like it at all. I thought that gave the Browns the edge, and that gave them the ammunition. I think if that fight wouldn't have happened, I think we would have came out with the win. But I think that's all they needed to spark that edge for that game. And as soon as that happened, I said, "This is not good," because you don't need to give those guys any more ammo than they already had. They were jawing all week. And the other thing I thought about was Debo. Debo, I think, in all honesty, he still has a little bit of growing up to do. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think this is his first year as a captain. And he hasn't been a captain. The thing that bugged me about Debo, and this is just my opinion, you can't talk shit and not finish the game. That's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like you started a fight and you didn't even make it through halftime. Now I get it. He got injured. Injuries happen. But that's still embarrassing. And then after the game, he gets into a feud with whoever that guy is. I don't even want to mention his name. So my biggest beef was kind of with Debo. The other thing I took away from that fight was it messed Ayuk up. And Ayuk's a dog. He just looked out of it. He looked out of it. I don't know what was going on with him. I don't know if Purdy was missing him. He just his facial, like his body language looked like he was just in his head. And I honestly think that fight kind of just is where it all started.
well,
Um, mhm.
I don't want to say a fight started off in favor of the Browns. Um, what I believe started everything off was first and foremost, Purdy came out the gate. I'm sorry, Purdy came out the gate struggling. Um, Second, we started losing players to injury, and the rain, of course, had minimal factors to Purdy's game. He was just struggling all game, period. And what I believe happened with Ayuk is the fact that how the ball was coming out of Purdy's hand and the timing was off. That's that's the only scenario that I can come up with to excuse both parties.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I'm not gonna disagree with that. I think that had a lot to do with it. But specifically to that scuffle, now even looking at how the Browns played the Colts, that wasn't the same defense. I don't know if it was because it was indoors, it was turf. I don't know what, but in my opinion, and I may be wrong here, but I just think that fight was unnecessary. And I just think it was out of character for us. Like, talk on the field. And, it is what it is. But yeah, since you brought Purdy up, let's move on to Purdy. I guess if we play the blame game here, what happened? Was it the rain? Was Purdy just shook? Was our O line just getting manhandled, or was the play calling off?
All the above.
I agree.
I mean, it's starting to show. I think that Purdy does have a weakness in weather because his two worst games now, there's been rain. It could be light rain, whatever. It affects him. He wasn't able to grip the ball. It was affecting his throws. So I think he needs to. I know some of us have mentioned wearing a glove. Maybe he needs to try it out in the next weather game because it's obviously it's something that kind of bothers his game.
Yeah. Mav, are you losing any? Did you lose any type of confidence in Purdy's game after the Browns?
No, actually, I've gained a hell of a lot more confidence in Purdy because this is a game that I've wanted to see, and I'm going to say this on record: Purdy needs to have more games like that without those superstars in order for him to grow. Because we've seen good quarterbacks and bad quarterbacks in Kyle Shanahan's system. We've seen what he can do with veteran quarterbacks that has been playing for years. So give Purdy a year of bad games like this without superstars, let him grow, and this kid will be the real deal. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. And those are the kind of games that he needs in order for that title to really stick with him because you can see the athleticism, you can see the poise in him. We know what he can do with a great team surrounding him, but what can he do with just mediocre players? Can he still lead them to victory?
Yeah, I mean he did. I mean he let him down to give him a chance. So even though he didn't have the best game, he still stepped up when it mattered.
Mm.
Now, you know what I mean. So, you know, as far as Purdy goes, I think there was also a combination of play calling issues. I'm not sure if you guys agree with this or not, but specifically after Fred picked that ball off, I don't believe we scored. Did we? Did we? I think we even missed a field goal. We didn't put up points. So I think the play calling was a little bit off. Um, and to Mike's point, I think Purdy does need to try something because, to Chris's point as well, and he'll be joining us a little bit later here. It's gonna get cold here. We're gonna have some bad weather games,
Oh my
and I know Purdy um maybe had about 3 or 4 bad weather games in college, one of which was really bad, and he was outperformed by I think almost a Division II quarterback. So something has to get fixed. Let's jump over to Kyle though, because Kyle's matchup with Schwartz was just as important. You know, I know the stats has been thrown out a lot on Twitter. It's been talked about. I think Schwartz is like 8-2 against them.
No,
I think
not
it's like
eight,
1 now.
9,
What's that?
that's 9-1 now.
9-1?
Yeah.
Wow. Are we concerned about that?
That there's one guy in the league that kind of has Shanny's number. I
Right.
mean, it is what it is. I mean, we would only have to worry about it in the Super Bowl, so it is what it is. And
We probably won't see him.
there's always going to be weird matchups. Like different coaches have different coaches' numbers. We know that, and he just is Shanny's. And hopefully we get an opportunity to get that back later down the road. But I think he was also just thrown off. He lost 2 of his best players, and he didn't know how to adjust. Players weren't prepared to fill in for the spots that he had game planned.
All right,
Yeah.
so one guy having your number can be a little concerning and alarming to a degree, depending on when in the season you play him and how smart coaches coming up are that you're about to play. In other words, Schwartz has given you the blueprint on how to stop the Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers.
Right.
Now, the remaining teams on our schedule, are they smart enough, or are they coaching staff smart enough to infuse their game plan along with a Schwartz game plan? Can they do that? That's the only concerning part. Can we find any coach coming down anywhere down the stretch that can do that, possibly do that?
Well, I mean, and that's a great point though, because you're right. Now it's on tape. It's a copycat league. People are going to try to replicate it. Who has the personnel to do it though? And to Mike's point, we probably is there anybody in the NFC on a remaining schedule or in the playoffs that match up the way the Browns do against us?
I
No.
mean, did you think the Browns would match up like that? Be honest.
Me?
Ron did.
Yeah, so
Ron kept giving him credit.
I did. So let's go back to our predictions since you bring that up. I did. I kept telling you guys I was concerned about their defense. The only reason why, one, I stick to my score, it's because that's what we're averaging. And I was really banking on our defense making PJ Walker make mistakes, which he did, but we didn't capitalize on it. Had we capitalized on the mistakes, the score would have been close to what I predicted, but we didn't. So I was very well concerned about the Browns because I do believe they have the personnel to match up against us. And Ayuk didn't look like an Ayuk. He looked like he was guardable. So I mean,
Did I have the Browns winning that game on record?
I don't think any of us did. I don't think any of us saw us losing really.
I mean, I did pick
Um,
teams, right?
what's
Five
that?
losses. Did pick 5 losses, right?
Your record prediction?
Yeah,
I think you did have 11. What is it? 12-5?
something like that. And I believe the Browns were one of them. I'm not
The
sure.
Browns?
I don't even.
I know the Cardinals were one. I just couldn't think of which week, but I did say one of the games. I don't
So
know.
yeah, I mean, Shorts plays them well. Shorts knows what he's trying to do. But do we really have to worry about Schwartz and the Browns going forward? No, I don't think so. Um, what about the refs? Let's talk about the refs. My favorite subject. Is it fair to blame the refs? I mean, is it an excuse at this point, or like, did we get hosed?
I mean, it's a little from column A, a little from column B. I know people take it as complaining and making excuses, but there were blatant bad calls that even the broadcasts were calling out as bad calls. And it's not just our game. We've gotten to a point where these refs are making decisions that affect the game, and that shouldn't be a thing. The NFL needs to take this offseason and seriously look into how to fix it. Like maybe start fining them. Like players get fined all the time. Why aren't we finding refs for making bad calls? Like New York is supposed to be there to kind of look over things and call stuff back if it's not, and they're not doing that. Make stuff reviewable, make stuff challengeable, because it's becoming ridiculous. It's ruining the sport every week.
Right. Especially when you come out and you don't find anybody over hits. So that's just telling you the league
No,
didn't see, right. They didn't see what those refs saw. And that crew was just so sloppy since the get-go. Even against the Browns. Even against the Browns. The Browns had some calls that were questionable, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to complain about them, but then they came our way in the second half, and I'm like, man, that was a clear fumble. That was a clear fumble.
yeah,
I mean,
it all started with that one. That one was
it was
ridiculous.
bad.
For
And
example,
then
like that play tonight on Jalen Hurts. I mean, the man clearly pulled back his arm and Jalen flopped. Yet the ref called that. That was not a
Roughing the passer.
yeah, that was not a rough in the passer call. I'm sorry.
I mean, is it really going to get better though? I mean, it's like the turf thing, isn't it? Are
Yeah.
we just
Okay, I believe the whole thing behind it is safety, right? So the more you talk about safety, the more you're going to be calling plays and calling fouls that has nothing to do with the game.
But it's
Just
also
but
they can't be like, we're calling these plays because of safety, but then you refuse to replace turf,
exactly
because that's a bigger safety issue. Come on.
right. And
It,
you hit
it's
the
a
nail on the
double-edged
head.
sword that it's just these double standards, and it's part of the thing that I think everybody hates about the NFL is just it's poorly run.
I mean, for them, I believe priority is more of the contact of the players and stuff. Especially like, okay, for example, Tua last year, two bad concussions back to back. That should have never happened in the game. So I believe when it comes to the quarterback, you're gonna get called a lot coming this year because of the protection and the safety reason for them. It's kind of like even in the game, the quarterback is still wearing the red jersey, and that sucks.
But why though? Why do you think drives? What do you think drives that?
The owners,
Money.
yeah, the owners, that's their bread and
You can't
butter.
hurt my quarterback. He's the face of my franchise. You hurt my quarterback. There goes my season. There goes people's butts in seats. It's all
It,
driven by money. I think the player safety is a bullshit excuse to dictate the outcome of games. And I know this is not a popular opinion. I know this is not a popular opinion, but I think there's too much money involved till where now refs are just like obviously dictating the outcomes of games. And I'm not saying there's a conspiracy theory to have the Browns win, but I can't help but question it. It happened again this week against the Colts.
but I mean,
Why?
that's not the first time though. It's not the first time, nor will it be the last.
What's up, Chris?
What's going on, Chris? It really became public when who was that? Donahue, I believe that was his name, who was
That was
taking
an
points.
NBA.
Huh? Huh?
Yeah, Donahue was an NBA ref.
Yeah, but still, he's a ref. So that's been going on in the league before we even start watching it. I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon. It's probably gonna get way worse.
So at this point, are we saying we just have to accept it?
Not so much accepted, but what is it that you're gonna do about it at this point? You're gonna have to wait till next year.
I guess that's my whole point is if you look up the NFL, it says they're an entertainment business. It's an entertainment business.
So it's
Now
gotta
you
make
got fantasy football involved, you got Vegas involved, and you almost even have coaches trying to cover spreads. You saw what McVay did. I don't know if you want to call that a moral field goal, but it looked to me like he got a call from somebody saying you need to kick this field goal to cover the spread. So again, I know this is unpopular. I know this is a tinfoil hat take, but It's come on, guys. Let's be real with it. We're all grown-ups here.
I
I
mean,
think it's
Ben
just
Rock,
a matter of, are we still going to watch it? Probably. Does the NFL know that? Yes. Are we still
I
going to
mean,
show up? Yes. So why would they care?
Ben Roger Goodell go down to the Jaguars locker room at one point between the Patriots AFC Championship game and told them to lose because Brady would be a better Super Bowl than they would.
Mm-hmm.
Then he do that. Jalen Ramsey had to take down his tweet.
I mean, I don't know about that, and you can jump in here, Chris. We're just obviously we're talking about NFL officiating, how bad it is,
Mm.
and really what drives it. And as fans, like, what do you do about it?
Man, I see. I didn't hear a lot of what you guys said, so I'm jumping on late here. But Major League Baseball is going through the same exact problem. I mean, we've reached a point where there's going to possibly be robot umps with robotic strike zones for within the next couple years. But I will say, and I understand what you mean by it's an entertainment business. I'm an adult man who has loved professional wrestling since 1990. You want to talk about being attached to entertainment and what that brings. That's why anything that happens in sports doesn't shock me because I've watched it on a wrestling television screen at some point in my life. But I will say this, and I have a habit, and I've told you guys this before. I've gone back. I watched football games from like 90 through like 97, 98 of the Niners all the time. I go back and I watch those games on YouTube, and I see a quarter of the flags thrown back then than there are today. And I don't know if it's just
It was more brutal.
and I don't know if the game has gotten softer because of technology to protect these guys, or to protect them, right? It's still a car crash, but the amount of flags that we see on like within sometimes 3 or 4 minutes of the game. I felt like I saw a flag every 45 seconds in the Niners and Browns game. Like it got to a point where even the announcers are saying, "Oh, another flag here. What could this possibly be?" And I don't know what it is, Ron. And I don't. No one can seem to explain it to me. I heard maybe you guys are kind of hinting at, it has to do with spreads and making sure the games get to a certain point, a certain score. I don't even know how you can really control that in football, but look, something's got to give. But then again, Ron, like you said at the end there, as I came on, the ratings keep going higher, advertising dollars going higher. They're just printing. They're like a $13 billion business right now, maybe even more than that. I don't know until we all stop watching by the millions. I don't see how this league is going to stop the way they're officiating. But I'll tell you what, and to agree with you guys, it's maddening to me to see some of these calls that are, if the worst position I feel like you want to be in college or in the NFL is anywhere in the secondary, because you are not allowed to do your job unless this was flag football. If it was flag football, these dudes would be amazing. But you can't touch a quarterback, and you can't even breathe on a wide receiver or a tight end. So, I didn't hear if Mike had an opinion. I didn't hear Mav. I heard a little bit of what you said, Ron. But that's where I'm at. Sorry for that long-winded answer.
No, you're good. I mean, let's take the Rams Super Bowl for an example. That was clear as day.
Yeah.
That was the NFL forcing LA to have a team, build a stadium, and
Right.
planting a trophy for a fan base, for a team that doesn't even have a fan base in that city. That was obvious. And I think there's a few different factors here,
Can
because
I
you
bring
saw
up
it in
another
that Super Bowl.
example?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or inconsiderate. I mean, New Orleans Saints. I mean,
No,
same
that
year.
one
Mhm.
was a great example, actually.
I
I mean,
mean,
there's fans that sued over that because of that call. That was blatant that the Saints should have won that game.
yeah,
But
Yep.
it's all hindsight 2020. But
yeah,
Right. And then you do your homework on the ref, the ump that did that called the Browns Niners game, and that's where I started digging, because that is the question: why would the NFL benefit from the Browns beating the 49ers?
I
What's
agree.
what's the catch there? And like, again, you can chase a rabbit down a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but what is it? Because
I
it
mean, you're
happened again
right.
against the
And
Colts. Does the NFL want the Cleveland market to be big again because
good
of the
luck.
Watson contract?
That's a good question. And look, I know on the group thread, Mike was coming at me pretty hard. And I watched a bunch of highlights from the Browns Niners game, and I have a little bit of a change of opinion. And I don't blame refs often at all, and I just don't. I don't. But I will say, ooh, that was the one of the worst officiated games against the Niners that I've seen in a long time. And some of the calls, I'm thinking to myself, who in the world, who could possibly see this and make that call? And it happened multiple times over the course of the game. And I felt like the Niners wouldn't even have had a chance to get going because something would have been called against them no matter what to stifle that. So I kind of am taking a step back, and I'm being accountable for some of my criticisms from the Browns game, because I felt like almost at every other turn, um, the officiating was halting the Niners' progression in some way. And you won't hear me say that often, but I definitely think it's 100% factually accurate for that Browns Niners game.
Yeah.
Remember when I told you, Chris, when we jumped on after the game, the first thing I said was I'm not blaming the refs for the simple fact that both teams had equal flags. So it could have gone either way, and the teams just couldn't capitalize on the flags. So that's the only reason I'm like Xing the refs out of it for this week because of the equal amount of flags on both sides.
I agree, but I look at from the flag, look at the timing of the flags that were thrown against the
Exactly.
49ers. That's kind of where I start saying, yeah, they had about equal flags thrown, but let's go back and see at what points of the games, on what drives, the Niners were getting certain flags thrown on them. And that's where I kind of start to go, maybe Ron, what you were saying just now, it kind of hit my head. Well, look at the spread. No, the league has two undefeated teams left. What? How good would it look for Vegas for a big upset for the Browns to come in and take care of the powerhouse San Francisco 49ers? Like, sometimes I really do sit there and I think sometimes that crap goes on, and sometimes I feel like I think it's in my head. I think it's hogwash, but when you watch these games and you see some of these things that happen, guys, like, I feel like to myself, man, there's a reason Vegas is usually always right.
Right.
Something's got to be going on.
Right. Right. And then to Mav's point, I mean, Tim Donahue was a perfect example in the NBA.
Oh yeah,
I was a Suns fan, dude. So if you're, I'm going to Suns Spurs series back in the 2000s was blatant obvious that it was rigged. And then a couple years later, that ruined basketball for me. I didn't even watch anymore because I knew at that point we got screwed. They came up with a rule that never even been called before. And then a couple years later, the guy gets indicted for federal charges for, gambling, throwing games, shaving points.
yeah.
So then at that point, I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't you? There's so much money involved.
It's like blue
And then,
chips.
and that's my whole thing, though. It's like, to anyone who would listen, when is it going to be our turn? When is
Yeah.
Vegas going to favor us for the Super Bowl? Because that's probably when we're going to get it. And I saw it this year, and I told you guys earlier in the year, this is going to be our year. If we're heavily favored throughout the year through Vegas, that's a good sign. And I hate to it seems like a handout, but you look at the Chiefs and it's obvious the NFL is forcing these guys to get into the playoffs. And to Chris's point, It's when they call these flags. Remember the
Yeah.
Rams Bengals Super Bowl? They walked the Rams down the field with flags
Yeah, they did.
until they scored. And
Yeah.
it was so obvious. So my thing is, well, when is it our turn?
Yeah.
Why is how does the NFL decide who gets a turn? And I know this sounds crazy, but how they're going to push who where. And it seems like the odds are always stacked against us. And not only do we got to play the team, it seems like we got to play the refs too. So
I mean, we'll see. It's going to be hyper focused tomorrow night. I mean, that's the only game in the world going on right now. Right at that point, Monday Night Football prime time. This is the kind of game where you can look way more through a microscope tomorrow to see what calls are going where against who. It's always important to me to always see who is it going against, because even last season I would always say, whether my wife was listening or if I had a friend over, I would always say every single offensive calls against Trent Williams, all of them. It's either something on Trent or something against Kittle. That's it. It's only those two dudes that are getting these calls against them. And so far during this year, I've been seeing almost the same thing. If it's an offensive holding, I feel like it's right on Trent. It's automatically going to Trent Williams. And that's the thing. I feel like certain players are picked out or singled out. And I think it's certain times and drives where flags are going to be thrown. So I think tomorrow is going to be a big indicator of how the Niners are being treated by the NFL and their officiating.
Yep, I agree. So let's jump right into tomorrow, because I know we got predictions, and it's a perfect way to transition into tomorrow's game. So
don't worry, Mike. I have the Niners winning very nicely tomorrow night.
So I mean, the Niners show up on Monday night. We all know
Yeah.
that they're the winningest franchise, in the NFL when it comes to Monday night games. And there's a lot of storylines. There's been a lot of storylines this week with injuries. So let's talk a little bit about the injuries. We'll talk about Debo and his hairline fracture with the shoulder. Do we think he's going to be out more than 2 to 3 weeks? Is this a concern?
I think they're confident he'll be back after the bye. Because if not, why not put him on IR?
I agree with that. That was my very first thought, Mike, and that's a great point. To me, I feel like if they think it's a little bit more significant than after a bye week injury, then you throw him on IR. So I agree. I'm probably a little bit more in the long term. I mean, how can I not be more worried about Trent Williams with that left ankle? I mean, the fact that he probably won't play on tomorrow is like almost stunning to me. The fact that Trent Williams won't be in uniform playing football tomorrow night, but that's the one that I just don't like the most, is having Trent. I mean, that's an all-world Hall of Fame tackle there. So that worries me a little bit. The Debo thing. And, I said this in the group chat, and sometimes text doesn't give you my tone when I'm texting these things. And when, last week when Debo went down, it was all on Ayuk, and Ayuk dropped a few very big balls. And I truly believe Ayuk is a number one wide receiver in the NFL. I want him tomorrow night to show that again. I want Purdy to lock up with that dude 7 or 8 times for 120 yards and a touchdown. Like, I want him to get back to where he was a couple weeks ago, where he was almost unstoppable when the ball was thrown his way. So that's I'm looking forward to how Shanahan calls an offense without Debo Samuel in there from start to finish.
So the Vikings are 23rd in points allowed per game. They're 15th in total yards allowed per game. They're 17th in passing yards allowed per game. And they're 18th in rushing yards per game. Overall, as a defensive unit, they're 15th in the league.
Yep.
Is there, any concern there? Are they? I mean, that doesn't sound like a very good defense to me.
No, it's setting up for the perfect bounce back game for us.
It is.
You got a mediocre defense going against a very pissed off Niners. We got punched in the mouth, and like we've said, prime time we shine. They're going to show the world tomorrow why they're the real deal.
Yep, I agree, man.
What was the 49ers' last primetime loss? Because I know Kirk Cousins does not do well in primetime. And I don't believe the 49ers lose primetime games, even if they don't have a great record.
I think the last big one was 2 years ago against the Bills Monday night, where they just manhandled us.
Yeah, I'll have to look while you guys are talking. But I will say this, you guys talk about Vegas odds and who there might be some favor to. The Minnesota Vikings haven't won a home game in almost 10 months. Not a playoff game, not a regular season game, not even a preseason game. So Monday Night Football, San Francisco 49ers against a Minnesota team who cannot win in their home building. So, I mean, that's something to possibly look out for too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a possibility that they're, in the tanking business this year. So who knows? CMC, a lot of chatter about his usage. He says he's going to give it a go. All right, and I know we talked a little bit about this. There was mixed opinions. Should CMC go tomorrow? Should he play?
Yes, I think he should. But I'm going to say it again. I've said it the past couple of weeks, whether you guys, agree or disagree. I just don't want to see him getting the ball 20 times. I think he should be used as a decoy quite a few times as well. And I've seen Mike say this before, and I'm saying this every damn week until it comes to fruition again. I'm getting tired of George Kittle not being used in the passing game more. I get it. He caught 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys, but he had 3 catches for like 30 yards and 3 touchdowns. No, I need George Kittle catching balls over the middle, 6, 7, 8 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. Like I need him. I need them to use him in that offense. Without Debo, you need that other threat other than Ayuk because they're going to pay attention to him more. Look, I've said this before and I get criticized for it. I think Kittle is overall the best tight end in the world in the game. And I don't have any criticisms against Kyle Shanahan because I do think he's a brilliant head coach and a brilliant offensive mind. But when you have that superstar, number 85, and he's not used more often in that passing game, I want to know why. That's all. I want to know why.
I mean, I'll take a crack at it. I mean, he's too good of a blocker, and at this point, he's become an offensive lineman. And I know that drives me nuts to hear. Mm-hmm. I love the blocking. He's a great blocker.
I agree.
But you're right. He was non-existent against the Browns, and he had looks.
Yeah.
So, and then it seems to come in bunches because, I mean, he scored 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys, and then he was non-existent against the Browns. They asked Purdy that question this week. I think it was Larry Krueger. Like, what gives, and why is it that Kittle doesn't get as many looks as he should? And Purdy basically said, it's just the way the game plan lays out. He's probably not part of it that week. And okay, well, should he be?
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I agree with you. I think we probably should throw a little bit more to Kittle, but then what happens if we take him off the line? What happens to our pass protection?
That's a good point, especially if Trent's out. So that's a good point. Well, damn it, Ron. You just pissed in my Cheerios.
Well, so, I mean, should we solve for the old? I mean, is the O-line an issue then? I mean, because look at McKivitz. I think McKivitz is doing a great job compared to McGlinchey. The bar's not high with McGlinchey. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But McKivitz seems to be doing a lot better. But if you're going to continue to tell me that the reason why you don't take Kittle off the line is because he's so critical to the block, then what's that say about your linemen?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I know I'm just creating problems without a solution here, but I think you can have a fine balance of Kittle getting the rock and block it.
Let me answer the question real quick, man. So wouldn't that make Purdy a system quarterback based on his comment about Kittle? and the way he played against the Browns, wouldn't that make him a system quarterback as of right now?
Why?
I mean, saying the way the game plan goes, but I mean, if you see the guy wide open,
You're always gonna have a game plan. Like you're gonna plan for certain guys every game. That has nothing to do with being a system quarterback.
no, I get that, but some game plans, don't always go based off the game plan. I mean, if you see the guy wide open and you got the time, why not hit him?
I guess my question to you would be is, well, define what a system quarterback is and isn't. Are you saying it's because he's following what Kyle's asking them to do? Because there's certain plays where Kittle is purposely ran up the seam to draw attention to hit Ayuk on the dragger underneath, and that's what Purdy was explaining. And that's the right read. That doesn't make him a system quarterback. It just means that's his read. That's where he should go.
That's a good point.
I mean, I guess I'm looking at it differently because, yeah, you can draw the game plan. You can tell me that's where I need to go. But if I see something else that's better while I'm on the field, then that's what I'm going for.
Well, I mean, then I have two questions then for you, Mav. One, I mean, not questions. One's a statement, one's a question. One, do you say are you using is Brock Purdy a system quarterback in a negative context? And two, he's 12 games into his NFL career. Maybe he's not at that level to where after a game he's publicly going to go against what his head coach is telling him to do and fixing the game plan for him.
Okay, to answer that first question, I don't necessarily think being a systematic player a bad thing.
Okay.
So it's just what it is. I mean, your skills are your skills, but like you said, he's not at that level yet to where he can go against his coach at the podium. I get that.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I enjoy that game against the Browns. That's one of the games that I've been waiting to see from Purdy. Like I told the guys, he needs to have more games like that without the superstars in order to be a better quarterback, because you see the skills, you know what he can do with weapons. What can he do with mediocre guys? Can he elevate them?
Yeah.
Or are they the ones who's gonna elevate him? So, but when you put it in the context of, well, that's just the way the game plan was and everything, that tells me that, okay, you're not really looking at the field like freely looking at the field. You're going based off just the read. So therefore you're staying within the system and trusting the system instead of your own thoughts.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, in terms of, you want to see a game where he doesn't have his stars. I mean, you can have your stars and still have phenomenal 2-minute drills down by 3, down by 6. I mean, not to get in the history books here, but how often was Steve Young without Jerry, without Ricky Waters, without John Taylor or JJ or T.O.? It was rare that Steve didn't have 1 or 2 superstars with him. And there were still many times where he had to run that 2-minute drill and execute. I think the biggest deal is it's just executing. Whether you're in a 2-minute drill or you're up 6, whether you're down 6 or up 6, I still think the pressure is the same almost in a way. When you're up 6, you want to hold the ball. You don't want to turn the ball over, and you got to make sure you drive down the field. And then when you're down 6, you got to do the same thing. Drive down the field, don't turn the ball over, and execute. But I understand. I agree with you. I liked seeing Purdy finally in some form or fashion have something to fight back against. And he did. He did it great. That was the best drive of the game for him. And he put them in a position to win the game. So I agree with you there.
So here's my issue with that argument and the whole system QB argument. Because when you scout a quarterback, that's exactly what you're looking for, is a guy who can execute your plays.
I agree.
A guy who's not going to go and Caleb Williams the ball and run around like a chicken with his head cut off. Dude, just throw the fucking slant. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Getting mad. Ron's getting mad.
That's all you need to do. You
I
know what I'm
agree with
saying? So that's my thing with the system quarterback thing is we want to see a superhero every single play. Great quarterbacks, if you give them the dig 10 out of 10 times, guess what they're going to do? They're going to take the dig.
Yeah.
If you're going to give them the slant 10 out of 10 times, guess what they're going to do? They're
you.
going to hit the slant.
Yeah.
Tom Brady did it. Joe Montana did it. Does that make them system quarterbacks? To me, a system, he's a guy who's executing the game plan. That's what you want. Hey, here's your read, second read. They're not there. Hit the third.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
the other thing about the system quarterback issue is when the pocket collapses, is Purdy capable of extending the play and hitting the open guy? We've seen that time and time again.
Yeah.
We've seen
Yep.
it. He can ad lib on the field
Yep.
and hit open receivers just like Mahomes. To me,
Remember-
that alone excludes him from the system quarterback criteria.
And remember, the criticism a couple times in the beginning of the season was, oh, Purdy can't throw to his left. Purdy can't scramble and throw to his left. In the first couple weeks of the season, there was multiple big plays he made by scrambling and throwing the ball to his left. So it's a growing process. He's like 23 years old. So it's a growing process for him. And to me, I think, outside of the Browns game, he's been damn near perfect at what he's had to do and what he's called to do.
And that's why I use the keyword as of now. Not moving forward because he's so young and he is still learning.
I agree, but all I can go off is as of now because I didn't have the DeLorean and have the almanac to where I can see what's going on 10 years from now, what Purdy's doing. But like Matt, realistically, that's all we can really do is take this thing week to week because I don't know what else to do.
Honestly, this entire season is week to week. Teams that are supposed to be winning or losing, teams that are supposed to be losing or winning, and teams
That's
that are
life
supposed
in
to
the
be
NFL, Mav. It's been like that since the day before forever. It's
that's
any given Sunday.
Yeah.
That's
this
why
season.
it is pointless to really sit here and talk about who the best team is because any dog has it's any given Sunday.
Yeah.
That's just the way in the NFL is. That's why it's so hard to predict.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. But it's just this season is just something totally different about it, man. It's like you would sit there and be like, okay, for example, look at your pick sheet today. Look at your pick sheet today. You predicted all those teams to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of them I agree with.
We all had the Lions winning except Mike. What happened?
Yeah.
Did anybody expect the Patriots to win and beat the Bills today?
I think that was the biggest shock.
Maybe Drew. He just probably didn't want to pick them so we can laugh at him.
But you are right. The Bills are 4-3, and when the Bills have lost games this year, they've lost games. Like they've looked bad. I'm looking at some of the highlights now while you guys are talking. The Eagles took it to Miami. That was a high-powered Miami offense that pretty much didn't do anything against the Eagles. Again, I think the Eagles are in trouble within the next few weeks. Their schedule really opens up to where they're finally going to face some really decent teams, and we'll kind of see what happens there. But I think you're right. This season's weird that even though the Chiefs whooped on the Chargers today, the Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs of the past 2 or 3 years. So it is so wide open for the Niners this year. Like it's not even funny. It's just so wide open for them to finally get that 6.
Yeah, look at the Cowboys and let's look at the Dolphins. Everybody had them as they on the power rankings one. They've been they've been a number one team at one point throughout the season. But then you look at the teams that they beat, and then they go up against the actual team with the winning record, and this is what happens. So, it's week by week,
Yeah.
and that's just how it goes.
Yep. Yep. I mean, look, everyone's darling this year were the Dallas Cowboys. And again, the Dallas Cowboys just continue to do Dallas Cowboys things. Like
Who's
they
everyone, darling? I didn't even have them making the playoff this year.
in the
Well,
opening
man,
in the
let's
beginning of the
remember
season.
National media.
The national media had it was either Niners going through the Cowboys or the Eagles. It was one of those. It was absolutely they loved the Cowboys going into this season because, I mean, it's Dallas Cowboys.
They love the Cowboys every year until they don't.
Exactly. That's right. So I mean, look, the Cowboys have a sketch. I mean, look, they barely scraped by the Chargers after getting just blown out of the water by the Niners. They got the Rams, Eagles, Giants, Panthers, Commanders. So their schedule is kind of favorable up until the end of the season. Let's see what they do. I mean, I still see a couple bad losses there for them, and it's going to be Dallas type losses. So again, this NFC is going to run through San Francisco, and it's I don't see that changing. I really don't.
Don't be surprised if Commanders beat the Cowboys.
I wouldn't. Yeah, definitely. I'm never surprised when the Cowboys lose ever. That's why. That's why they're America's team. America's happier when they lose.
Well, I mean, we sat here and we had that conversation about, I remember specifically Mav asking the win against the Giants. Did that say more about the Cowboys or the Giants? And I tried to tell him it said more about the Giants being a bad football team than the Cowboys being a good football team.
Yeah.
Because you saw what happened when they played a good football team.
Yeah, you saw when Tyrod Taylor becomes the starting quarterback of the Giants. They actually, somehow win a game. It's incredible.
Yep.
$48 million Daniel Jones is going to get next year. $48 million. And Brock Purdy's over here making like, $24 an hour in the NFL.
He's not even counting.
That's ridiculous.
He doesn't even count against the cap.
Right. That's ridiculous. Dude, I mean, he has to be a great kid to just be okay with that. I mean, come on. Any other selfish guy to be like, dude, you need to start paying me. Like,
there's nothing you can do.
That's seriously. It's just, man, that's
and
crazy.
Really, I don't think the Giants can do anything with him until after 2025, because his dead cap hit next year is $70 million.
Yeah, they're stuck.
And then 2025, it drops all the way down to 22. So they could, maybe after 2025, drop him. But if they were to drop him right now, it would cost $82.5 million.
Yep.
Find a sucker for a trade partner.
I can't believe it. I mean, I can't.
Yep. All right, fellas. So let's go ahead and start calling our shots here against the Vikings. So we know Kyle's going to be limited tomorrow. He's going to have to get creative. Other than Brandon Ayuk, and of course CMC coming back. Who do we think is going to be the next guy to step up? Do we see Kittle jump back in? Do we see a little bit of Ronnie Bell action? Do we see Jennings, Mason, Elijah Mitchell's back? Who do we think is going to be that guy that we got to go to or rely on tomorrow? While these dudes are out.
I think it's going to be a little all the above.
I agree. The name that came right to my mind was Jordan Mason. I mean, he's averaging 6 yards a carry when he gets the ball. So if CMC's limited, we'll see. If CMC is limited, I expect. I'm not talking about Elijah Mitchell circa 2019 in the NFC title game type performance, obviously. I'm looking at definitely a kid that can get 15 carries, maybe 3 touchdowns within that red zone. I think Jordan Mason, this should be a really good chance for Jordan Mason to shine.
Is Eli getting a start? I thought I heard something like that. I know there's a few fans complaining about Eli still getting a start over Mason. So
no,
I'll have to check. I mean, Elijah Mitchell's averaging 2.5 yards a carry, so I don't know how he's gonna get in there over Mason, but
Went up the depth chart.
So
yeah,
I mean,
I'll have to see.
yeah. So I mean, speaking of Elijah, though, I mean, where are we at with him? Are we out on Elijah yet? I mean, are we? Is there still stock in there? Or?
I'm out.
I've been done. I've been done since the offseason when he was hurt at pre-camp and then hurt again at camp, and it's just the guy's glass. Like when he was healthy, he was great, but he can't be healthy. He stubs his toe in the morning, he's out 2 weeks. I mean,
yeah, when he got hurt in pre-camp, I threw my hands up and I'm like, I can't even take. I mean, they walk in pre-camp, and this dude is getting hurt, and I'm with Mike on that one. Like I was done in pre-camp. I'm like, I'm done.
If you're with Mike when it comes to picking games, get with me when it comes to choosing running back.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna have to steal Mike's pick. Good thing I got access to him. I'm gonna start gambling on it. I'll cut you a piece, Mike.
Yeah,
I'll cut you a piece.
Piss me off because I wanted to pick Chicago, man, but I went with the Raiders instead. Ugh.
Dude, I don't even want to look at my picks right now. I don't think I got anyone right besides the Chiefs. I mean, did you guys have the Browns beating the Raiders?
No, we don't have the Raiders.
I mean, the Bears. I'm sorry, the Bears beating the Raiders.
Oh no, I didn't have the Bears beating the Raiders. No,
the Bills losing to the Pats. Come on,
no one had that.
No one did. I think we all did just as bad.
I
think you only got like 3 wins, man.
Thanks, Math.
No problem.
I appreciate.
It's just crazy that it's 2023 and Brian Hoyer is still starting NFL football games.
Right. I know this is a little bit off topic here, but just to touch on the Bills and the Pats. Bill Belichick actually signed an extension. Was that a myth? Is that false, or is he on a hot seat?
No, that's what came out today. I think because of the hot seat, so he was probably like, "Well, I signed an extension." Well, guess what? That means nothing in the NFL. If you're not winning games, they can still do what they want.
Of course, yeah. Money means nothing unless you're Daniel Jones.
It does not. And Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, yeah.
Look, guys, call me crazy, but I really think that's the driving factor here. I think Jim Haslam is in Goodell's pocket. Something's going on with the Browns this year. Yeah. Something's going on with the Browns this year. But someone's got to pay for that whatever ridiculous amount of guaranteed money. And it's going to benefit the Browns to be good this year because that's ludicrous. Anyway, so let's do our predictions so we can wrap it up here. Before we go into score predictions, are we going to see a heavy amount of passing or a heavy amount of rushing tomorrow?
A heavy amount of passing on the Vikings end.
I think we're going to pass a lot tomorrow too.
I think we're going to pass a lot. I think it's a Purdy redemption game. I really do. I do. I mean, I think it's going to be one of those like 27 of 32 for 280 to 300 or 3 touchdowns. Like it's going to be like a Drew Brees type game where the accuracy is going to be pinpoint, and he's not going to throw it for 400 yards, I don't think, but he's just going to be. I think he's just going to be on, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So we'll go around the horn here. We'll just go ahead and name our player of the game tomorrow. What player do you think is going to have the best game for the 49ers? And then we'll do our score. So I'll kick it off. I think Bosa is going to have a really good game tomorrow. I think the Browns pissed him off, and I see a couple of highlights from him during the week, and he looked phenomenal. So I think Bosa is going to go off, and I'm sticking to my original score. My consistent score throughout the whole season, 35-10. Chris, what say you?
My player of the game is also going to be defensively. I think Fred Warner is going to continue his route to the defensive player of the year. I think he gets another interception. I think I'm also going to add in there a sack. Maybe we see an INT return for a touchdown. So I definitely think Fred Warner will be the player of the game here. And I'm going to go 34-13 as my final score.
Nice. Matt, we're going to leave Mike till the end, and then I'm going to take notes so I can put some parlays on. Go ahead, Mav. What do you got?
I'm actually gonna go offense. I really want to say Jennings, but I really do believe there's gonna be an Ayuk bounce back game, and I'm gonna go with the score of 24-10.
24 to what?
Okay. 10.
10.
10. Okay. Mike.
All right, I'm going offense. This is a Purdy redemption game, like Chris said. So I'm going Purdy is my player of the game. We are going 38-13 for the score. And you know what? I think the football gods are going to bring some karma back for Bosa. He was robbed of a touchdown last week.
Yep.
I think he gets one. I think he finally gets a touchdown. That's be my hot take play for the game is Bosa gets redemption.
What was your score, Mike?
38-13.
38-13. And say if someone was to put a parlay on Purdy throwing 2 touchdown passes, do you think that would be a safe bet?
I think it's a safe bet.
We can go 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'll go
3 touchdowns. Nice.
Sure.
Nice.
I agree.
All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us. Again, it's another episode of that Niners Lounge. This is your boy Ron. You can catch us on YouTube. Catch us on Twitter. Chris, where else are we?
We're also on my Twitter account. We're on YouTube, obviously. Anywhere that you guys have accounts, if you guys follow Ron, Mike, myself, you can find us there as well.
Yes, sir. So, again, thank you for joining. We're trying to bring that consistency back. Hopefully, we can land on some nights here. And as always, go Niners.
So the most interesting city in the Union.
The San Francisco 49ers have been faithful to the Bay since 1946. Loyalty never goes out of style. Times change, and regions evolve, but the faithful never waver. 49ers fandom is passed down from one generation to the next.
On here, and whoever here wants to comment, you tell me how I'm supposed to react to a dude that is 23 with a Super Bowl caliber team and just he has not lost a regular season football game yet.
One thing you said though, Chris, if you feel like 0 touchdowns and over 200 yards is Brock Purdy's floor, are you satisfied with 2 TDs plus 200 yards a game his ceiling?